In the previous class, we had studied about DNA and the properties of DNA and also its structure. So before moving into that chapter, we'll have to study about the differences between RNA and DNA. So in the previous class, we had studied about the various nitrogenous bases in DNA and also the various nitrogenous bases of RNA. That was one difference, and apart from that, there are lots of other differences between DNA and RNA that we have to study now. So we'll first start with differences between DNA and RNA. So the first difference is that we have already studied in the previous class, that is the basis of DNA, that is adenine, guanine, thymine and cytosine. So apart from that, there is one difference in RNA, that is instead of thymine there is something else would be present, and that is called uracil. So the first difference is the presence of nitrogenous bases. So in DNA it is A, T, G and C. In RNA it is adenine, guanine, cytosine and uracil in place of thymine. So these three bases are same, but this uracil and thymine is different in the case of RNA and DNA. So this is one difference, and this difference also gives a lot of structural difference, that is called stability difference. So this thymine gives extra stability to DNA. Here, this uracil does not give any additional stability to RNA. So these are the two differences. Apart from that, there are lots of other differences, and before that we'll have to study at the presence of DNA in different organisms. So in different organisms, DNA is normally found in double stranded form in almost all the organisms on earth. That is, जो DNA है हमारा, वो पूरे अर्थ पे लगभग हर ऑर्गेनिज्म में, जितने भी ऑर्गेनिजम्स में डीएनए होता है वहां पर वो डबल स्टैंडर्ड होता है, एक्सेप्ट some viruses, that is called 174 virus. Apart from that, there are also a bit of differences. Otherwise, in every organism, DNA is almost double stranded. It is mostly single stranded. It is the main genetic material in almost all living organisms on earth. But this RNA is a genetic material in very few viruses. So such viruses are called riboviruses and like tobacco mosaic viruses. So in such organisms, RNA is the genetic material. In such organisms, DNA does not act as the genetic material. So these were the very common differences. Apart from that, we also have seen that this thymine gives extra stability to DNA and this uracil does not give extra stability to RNA. So that means that DNA is stabler and RNA is less stable. So if DNA is more stable, that means that it will mutate at a very slower rate. That is, mutations in DNA will be very less common as compared to RNA. So that stability difference is also because of something called ribose and deoxyribose sugar. So what happens is here is that on the second carbon, that is of the ribose sugar, this second carbon contains an OH group over here, and in the case of deoxyribose sugar, that OH group is not there. Here we have H. So on the second carbon, this is the second carbon and this is the first one. So here it's H and here it's OH. So this OH is a reactive group. From chemistry, that is organic chemistry, you might have studied that this hydroxyl group is a reactive group. Oxygen is a very reactive atom. So therefore this is a reactive thing. Therefore it is less stable and this is more stable. Apart from that, the third carbon is over here. Or the fifth carbon. This is the first, second, third, fourth and fifth carbon. So this is the normal carbon skeleton. So this is the main difference over here. This hydrogen group is the difference and this hydroxyl group is the difference. So because of this and because of thymine, DNA is more stable. And this RNA is just opposite. It is less stable, more reactive and it mutates at a faster rate. One major difference between DNA and RNA is that DNA can have its own replication. It can cause its own replication, but RNA normally cannot replicate itself. This is a very, very important difference. Apart from that, there are lots of other differences. One thing is about location. DNA is mostly confined to the nucleus, but RNA generally lies in the cytoplasm. That is, it is whether it is formed in our nucleus, but still it is transported into the cytoplasm. Like rRNA will be associated with the ribosomes, the transfer RNA will be freely in the cytoplasm, and the messenger RNA will be transported just outside, just after its formation in the nucleus. So RNA will be formed inside the nucleus, but they will be normally present in the cytoplasm. But DNA will be replicated inside the nucleus and it will be normally confined to the nucleus. And apart from that, DNA is also present in minute quantities in certain cell organelles like plastid and mitochondria. So only in that cases DNA is found outside the nucleus, but normally DNA would be confined to the nucleus. So these were the most common differences between DNA and RNA. One major difference and a very important difference that has proven that RNA became the first genetic material on earth is the catalytic property of RNA. There are very important genetic processes that is called splicing and other processes also. So those processes take place only because of RNA. That is, अगर RNA ना हो तो RNA के बिना बहुत सारे जेनेटिक प्रोसेसेस जैसे कि ट्रांसलेशन हो ही नहीं सकते हैं या फिर स्प्लाइसिंग नहीं हो सकते. सो ऐसे कैटालिटिक प्रॉपर्टीज की वजह से ऐसा सपोज किया जाता है कि अर्थ का जो सबसे पहला जेनेटिक मटेरियल था दैट वाज आरएनए. So it cannot act as an enzyme, since we know that biological catalysts are called enzymes, and it can act as an enzyme. For example, there is an enzyme called ribonuclease. It's a RNA enzyme. Apart from that, there is also another enzyme that is called peptidyl transferase. That is also an RNA based enzyme. So it can have catalytic property. So RNA was the first genetic material on earth. Why it is so? Because RNA does have catalytic property. RNA can cause splicing, then certain metabolic processes cannot occur without it. But DNA was developed later from RNA by chemical modifications. That is, uracil was replaced by thymine, single stranded was replaced by double stranded. It was other modifications also occurred inside DNA, that is stacking of the planes like this in the helicase form. So RNA is normally single stranded and it does not form helix except in the case of certain modifications. But DNA exists in the form of helix. So that is also a very important difference between the two. So these are the normal differences between RNA and DNA that we have to study at NEET level. So now we will study about replication of DNA, that is how DNA makes a copies of itself. So replication of DNA or synthesis of DNA occurs normally during the synthesis phase of cell cycle. In cell cycle we have seen that interphase is divided into three parts, that is G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase. So this DNA replication that we are going to study, it normally occurs in the synthesis phase or S phase of cell cycle. So DNA replication has certain properties associated with it. Some properties are semi-discontinuous or bidirectional, or other properties like only a single copy will be remaining of each strand and a new strand will be formed, that is called semi-conservative. So these are the three common properties of DNA replication. So before studying about DNA replication and its enzymatic processes, we first have to understand how scientists came to the conclusion that DNA replication is bidirectional or semi-conservative. So the first experiment that we have to study in this case is Taylor's experiment. So what happened here is that Taylor was a scientist and he experimented on something called Vicia faba, or that is also called faba beans. So he fed a radioactive thymine. We have studied that thymine is one nitrogenous base of DNA. So to the dividing cells of the root tip of Vicia faba, Taylor fed radioactive thymine, that is the 3H hydrogen, that is called tritium. So this Vicia faba is a plant and it was later known as faba beans. Only because of this experiment it became very famous. So this H3 that you might have studied in chemistry. It is called tritium. Hydrogen has 3 isotopes: protium, deuterium and tritium, and this one is radioactive. Since thymine has hydrogen atoms in it, so if radioactive hydrogen is provided, so obviously thymine will be radioactive, and that thymine, if it is fed to the dividing cells of the root of Visia faba, the new cells will have this thymine in their DNA, that is in their chromosomes. So because of this, it was proved that because of this radioactivity that was present in the root tips, it was proved that DNA replication was semi-conservative. So what he did was he fed dividing cells of roots of Visia faba, and all of them became radioactive. So the chromosome that now we have is the radioactive chromosome, and after that he gave them the normal thymine. So these were the experiments of Taylor. So what he did, he gave all radioactive thymine for several generations. Then all the cells became radioactive and their chromosomes and DNA became radioactive. Then for one generation he gave only normal thymine. Half of the chromosome, that is called the chromatid of each chromosome, became radioactive. But then also he gave this normal thymine, and in the next generation only 50% of the chromosomes were radioactive. So what does this prove? That this proves that so DNA also replicates or makes copies of itself semi-conservatively, and chromosomes also replicate semi-conservatively. Now we will study that through a diagram. So the normal chromosomes of this faba bean or the Visia faba all became radioactive because they were fed radioactive thymine. So we are labeling the radioactive by the shaded portion. Okay, and for one generation, when normal thymine was provided, when normal, that is H1 thymine was provided. Then what happened is that they replicated and then separated. So this is what happened. So in this case what happened was that only one chromatid became radioactive, but the other one did not become radioactive. So this was a very important observation that occurred. So only one chromatid was radioactive. So it gave rise to two chromatids and the similar results were observed. So what happens, the only one chromatid, that is we have studied here, when he fed normal H1 thymine to the cells for one generation. So these were the normal shaded and these were the radioactive part. And apart from that, the other part that is unshaded, that is called normal chromatid, that is it contains normal thymine, or we can also say thymidine because it was associated with sugar group. And the next generation, what happened, we have to study that. Here also H1 thymine was provided. So what happened in this generation, that 4 chromosomes, these two will give rise to 4 chromosomes, and out of them only 2, that is 50% of the chromosomes were radioactive. So we'll see that here. So this is what happened. For one generation, if radioactive thymine was provided, only one of the chromatids became radioactive, but the other chromatid were not radioactive. Then again, if H1 thymine was provided, what happened? That was that is one chromatid of these 2 chromosomes were radioactive and these were normal. So this is what is saying that only 50% of the chromosomes were radioactive in the next generation. So this was one experiment which gave an indication that through radioactive thymine, it was proved that semi-conservative replication occurs in DNA as well as chromosomes. So it provided evidences for chromosomal replication also as well as DNA replication also. Apart from this, we also have to study the experiments of Messelson and Stahl, and these were the people who provided conclusive evidence that DNA is replicating semi-conservatively. So the next experiment that we have to study is of Messelson and Stahl's experiment. So these people use the bacteria E. coli. So these were the three main steps that he took. What happened that they used bacteria E. coli, and for several generations only N15 was provided. And as we know that DNA contains nitrogenous bases, that is thymine, TUGC or ATGC. So what happens that N15 will be present in all those nitrogen bases. Apart from that, every organism is made up of proteins also, and proteins are made up of amino acids, and every amino acids must contain nitrogen, at least one. So every protein and every DNA nucleotide will have N15 because N15 was provided to several generations. And then what they did, that they used CaCl, that is cesium chloride density gradient centrifugation. So this results in the presence of the heaviest type of material at the bottom of the test tube after the centrifugation. If it is of intermediate, it will be above that, and if it is even lighter, then it will be above that also. So what they did was N15. So the normal DNA that they took was N15 and N15. So this DNA was containing nitrogenous 15th one, that is N15, and here also it was containing N15. So nitrogen has two isotopes, that is 15 and 14. So 15th one is not a radioactive but is a normally heavier isotope in terms of density only. So these two were there. But for one generation he provided N14 only for one generation, that is for 20 minutes approx, one generation. And therefore what they found was that one strand of each part was containing N15 as well as so what happened here is that one became N14 and one became N15, and we'll denote that by different colors over here. So we are labeling the new strand as red from red color. So what happened in this case, that the black one, that is the previous was N15 and the new one became N14. So here also it became N14, and the previous strand still contained N15. This was also of N15. So the one generation in this E. coli is approximately 20 minutes. So we can, instead of one generation, we could also write 20 minutes over here. And again one generation. So we can extend it further over here. So what happened in this case is that this was N15 from the beginning, that is, it is the old strand. Here also we have one old strand, but all the red strands were containing N14. Here also N14, here also N14, likewise here. So this is what happens. Here we have two old strands. Here we have two old strands as well as two new strands. That is, the red one is a new strand. How did scientists came to the conclusion? They came to the conclusion through density gradient centrifugation. So in this case, if they did CSCL centrifugation, then in the test tube what happened is that this was present at the least, that is it was present over here in this region, that is this is the N15th level. When both the strands were N15. When it was conducted over here, the result was that the dense DNA came to lie somewhere in between. So it was N15 as well as N14. So in this case, when the same process was done, then the level of the DNA in the test tube of the CSCL density gradient centrifugation came somewhere in between, that is somewhere above it, that is around here. So that is what happened in this case. So from this study, it was concluded that the DNA replication is happening at a semi-conservative mode, that is one old strand would be there and that will have one new strand, that is एक पुराना strand पे एक नया strand आएगा, and that is what is happening. So यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है कि जो पुराना strand है उस पर एक नया strand आया, तो ये N14 वाला जो पुराना strand है इस पर भी एक नया strand आया, and likewise here and likewise here. सो यहाँ पर अगर हम देखें तो जो एवरेज डेंसिटी होगा उनमें 14th वालों का जो नंबर है वो 6 है और 15 वालों का नंबर है 2. तो यहाँ पर जो एवरेज डेंसिटी होगा इससे कम आएगा क्योंकि यहाँ पर 50-50% है सबका, बट वहाँ पे काफ़ी ज़्यादा 6N14 वाले हैं, 2N15 वाले हैं. तो वहाँ पर अगर हम डेंसिटी ग्रेडियंट सेंट्रिफिकेशन करेंगे तो जो वो डीएनए का लेवल है इसके भी ऊपर समवेयर अराउंड हियर आएगा. तो इससे ये पता चला कि जो डीएनए का रेप्लिकेशन होता है वो सेमी कंजर्वेटिव, यानी कि एक नया स्ट्रैंड आएगा और एक पुराना स्ट्रैंड रहेगा जिसपे कि वो टेम्पलेट की तरह काम करके नए वाले स्ट्रैंड का फॉर्मेशन होता है. Now we will come to the main part of DNA replication, that is the machinery or the enzymes that are used in the DNA replication. But before going into the detail, we have to study 3 properties of DNA replication. One property is we just have to study, that is semi-conservative. So it is semi-conservative in nature. That is one new and one old strand would be there. Okay. The second property is it is bidirectional. So bidirectional means from wherever the DNA replication would start, that it would be followed in 2 different directions, that is in the opposite direction. So it will not be only occurring in one simple direction. So one property is semi-conservative, one is bidirectional, and also there are other properties of DNA replication which we will see later that when we will study this section. So these are the 2 main properties of DNA replication. So we will now come to the enzymatic processes which are occurring over here. First of all, we have already studied the properties of DNA replication, and now we are going to study about the enzymes. So the first part, that is the enzymes used in DNA replication. So enzymes in prokaryotes and eukaryotes will be different. So there are many enzymes, but we'll study the main enzymes. So in prokaryotes we have different enzymes, and eukaryotes we have different enzymes. So in prokaryotes there are at least 3 different DNA polymerases. So these are the 3 DNA polymerases of prokaryotes. In eukaryotes there are also different enzymes, but before that we have to study about these 2. So these 2 are the repair enzymes. They have very little role in DNA replication, and this is the major replicating enzyme. It is a major repair enzyme. And this one is a minor repair enzyme. Apart from that, all 3 DNA polymerases have the capability to polymerase that is cause the replication of DNA only in 5' to 3' direction only. So this is a single property of these enzymes which have certain significances, which we will see later. So it's not that these 2 cannot cause replication, but their replicating speed is very less. The replicating speed of DNA polymerase 3 is around 2000 base pair per second. So it is that fast enzyme. Apart from that, these 3 enzymes also have exonuclease activity. That is, they can remove the bases in the 3' to 5' direction. That is reverse of this direction. But since it is a crash course class, we are not going into that details. Apart from that, the DNA polymerase 1 also has certain exonuclease activity in the 5' to 3' direction. So there are also lots of properties about these enzymes. Now we will come to the eukaryotes. So eukaryotes have also many enzymes. The first one is DNA polymerase alpha. Then we have DNA polymerase beta. Then the third one is DNA polymerase delta. And before that we have the gamma. Apart from that, DNA polymerase delta, and the fifth one is DNA polymerase epsilon. So these are the 5 DNA polymerases in eukaryote, that is humans and other animals or plants. So these 5 enzymes have different roles, and we have to study those. That this is the major replicating enzyme. Just like DNA polymerase 3 is the major replicating enzyme in prokaryotes, we have DNA polymerase alpha. We will study later that DNA polymerase gamma, delta and epsilon have a secondary role, but this delta and epsilon have very important role, and we have to study those first. So this delta will cause replication on the leading strand. So these are the major replicating enzymes. So we also have certain roles for beta and delta. So these are gamma, these are very minor role enzymes. The main property of this is removal of RNA primers. So this DNA polymerase alpha is the main replicating enzyme, also because it is the only enzyme which is capable of starting replication. These enzymes, these four, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, cannot initiate replication. Only this can cause. Why? Because it will be able to form RNA primers. We will later see what are RNA primers, and this beta has the power to remove RNA primers. We will see why it is needed, and this has minor role. And there are two types of synthesis on the replication fork. We will see that one is leading, the other is lagging. So the lagging strand is synthesized by the epsilon and leading is synthesized by the delta. So we have to study now the main processes. These were the main enzymes of replication. So we have now come to the main processes, that is replication. So the DNA of prokaryotes are circular DNA, and those are double stranded also. So in prokaryotes what happens is that there is only one site from where replication can start, and that site is called ori, and there is only one ori present in the DNA of prokaryotes. But in the case of eukaryotes, what happens is that there are multiple sites from where the replication can start, and therefore the eukaryotic DNA replication is also called multi-repliconic because it has multiple sites of origin. So these were the two things about the starting of replication. That is, in eukaryotes there are multiple sites from where replication can start, and in eukaryotes there is only one single site of origin of replication. So this is about the starting. Now the next step, that is called activation of nucleotides. So the first step that occurs is activation of nucleotides. So we in the previous class we had seen that what is DMP, that is adenosine monophosphate, guanosine monophosphate, cytidine monophosphate, thymidine monophosphate. So these occur freely in the nucleoplasm, but these cannot directly be inducted in the replication. Why? Because they don't have any energy source. So first of all they will be activated and changed into the triphosphate form. So that DMP will be converted into its active form with the help of phosphorylase. So this is the first to be transformed from a monophosphate to triphosphate. Likewise, the other things will be also be transformed. So these are the bases that are activated, and how? Because it is monophosphate and it is triphosphate, then it is very obvious that two phosphate group will be added, that is these are monophosphates and those are triphosphates. These are monophosphates and these four are triphosphates. So this is the difference, that is it will have one phosphate group and these will have four phosphate group. So this is how the replication starts. So this is the first step of DNA replication. Now we will understand the DNA replication along with their diagrams. So we have to remember that these triphosphate will be a source of energy for the replication. DNA replication is a very energetic process. So it requires a lots of ATP energy or any form of energy. So when these triphosphates will be inducted to the DNA, then these triphosphate will be converted to monophosphate and two phosphate group will be removed. So there also energy will be released. We have also seen the ATPs, that is adenosine triphosphate, is a normal energy currency of the cell. So likewise these all four are could be used like energy currency. So when these triphosphate will be broken down into monophosphate, energy will be released, and that energy will be used in the case of replication. From the next step we have to study the step as well as the diagram together. So we will also have to study the process, and here we will study the diagram of that process. The second step that is occurring is opening of DNA helix. So this enzyme, or which is also called unwindase, it helps in opening of the DNA. We know that DNA is a double stranded, and for replication to occur it will have to become one stranded, that is single stranded, and this is the enzyme which will cause the double stranded DNA to become single stranded like this. This is a normal DNA. So this enzyme will convert it something like this. So it will cause the opening of that DNA helix, and the initial parts would still be a bit coiled. So this is what is happening through this helicase or unwindase enzyme, that is the double stranded DNA has been transformed to the single stranded DNA. Now this creates tension in the unopened part or the coiled part. So that tension is removed by something called a single strand binding protein, and also the other enzyme that is helpful in this is called topoisomerase. So this single strand has to be stabilized to prevent it from becoming double stranded. So what will happen over here is that this single strand will have something attached to it that is called single strand binding protein or SSBP. So in between two these strands there will be something called SSBP. So this single strand binding protein will be attached to the single stranded DNA strands. So this is attachment of SSBP. After that there is something called topoisomerase. So when two strands are unwinded, then it creates lots of tension in the case of previous uncoiled part. So what happens is that there is a protein or enzyme called topoisomerase. This will cause nicking of one strand of DNA. So that will help in releasing the tension. So that will occur in the just before SSBP. So this is the SSBP part, and here what will happen is that topoisomerase will be there. So this is the topoisomerase. This as well as this, both are topoisomerases. They will cause the nicking of one strand, so that could occur on any of the strands. So this topoisomerase will be present on one strand, and it could be either of those strands, because it will cause nicking of only one strand. Since I have shown there only once, twice doesn't mean it will be on twice, it could be on any of those strands. Bacteria has something called DNA gyrase. So when coiling happens, then DNA gyrase will introduce negative supercoils, that is in the reverse direction the coiling will occur. So that will really help in releasing the tension. So this is how the strand is opened, and after this something called RNA primase, or that will help in formation of RNA primers. Now we have not labeled the strand primer, that is which direction is which strand is running. So we'll now label that. So we have already seen that DNA polymerase can only and only polymerize the DNA chain in one direction, that is 5 prime to 3 prime. So it is very easy over here. We'll study that first and then see it in the diagram. So what happens is that a short stretch of RNA will be required, and that is called RNA primer. Without that, the DNA replication cannot occur. So what will happen is that a short stretch of RNA will be synthesized over here, and because the new strand will be formed, that will be anti-parallel, so therefore the new strand that is being formed over here, that will have 5 prime polarity and over here, and 3 prime in this direction. So we will see later what that happens. And here, since the new strand will also be anti-parallel to this strand, was only a short part of that could be formed. That is, all the DNA cannot open at once because of very high energy requirement. So first of all, this RNA primer will be formed. So this is the RNA primer part, and after that the replication will start. That is the main part of replication, that is chain initiation, will start. So now RNA primer has been formed, and after that the chain formation will start. So from here we have come here. So we'll note that draw a diagram a bit larger to understand better. So this is 5 prime, 3 prime, this is the old strand. So we have already seen that a RNA primer had been formed. So the new strand that will be becoming longer and longer with time will run in this direction, and that will have 5 prime to 3 prime polarity over here. So what happens here is that these two are anti-parallel, but that cannot happen here continuously. So this will have 5 prime and then it will go in this direction. But what will happen that all of the strand will not open at once. So जब ये स्ट्रैंड थोड़ा सा खुलेगा तब यहाँ पे ये फॉर्मेशन होगा, जब और खुलेगा तब ये फॉर्मेशन होगा. तो इससे ओकाजाकी फ्रैगमेंट्स का फॉर्मेशन होता है. सो यहां पर क्या हो रहा है कि और यहां पर इस नए वाले स्ट्रैंड का डायरेक्शन है 3 प्राइम. सो यहां पर तो ये डायरेक्टली बन जाएगा क्योंकि जैसे जैसे स्ट्रैंड खुलते जाएगा ये उस तरफ जाएगा. लेकिन यहां पर दिक्कत ये कि एक बार डीएनए पूरा स्ट्रैंड खुलने वाला है नहीं, तो यहां पर क्या होगा कि छोटे छोटे स्ट्रेचेस में इनका फॉर्मेशन होगा. तो हर जगह एक 5 प्राइम देन 3 प्राइम देन 5 प्राइम देन 3 प्राइम, likewise at every place. तो ये छोटे छोटे फ्रैगमेंट्स में इनका फॉर्मेशन होगा. और ये जो ओल्ड स्ट्रैंड था उसका 3rd प्राइम से 5 प्राइम था, और यहां भी black wala strand is the old strand and the red strand is the new strand. So here what was happening is that this is the leading strand and this is the lagging strand. And these are the lagging strand. So it is very easily forming and there are no intermediate breakages over here, but lots of breakages are over here. So these are called Okazaki fragments. So all these pieces that you are seeing here, these are Okazaki fragments. So this is how replication proceeds, and once it starts at a place, it proceeds until the whole of the DNA is replicated. The other strand, the DNA synthesis is happening in stages, that is part by part, and that will called as lagging strand. So these are the normal parts. So these Okazaki fragments are small pieces, and these have to be rejoined for this strand to be continuous. So first of all, the RNA primers will be removed, and that happens in the case of bacteria by primase, and in the case of eukaryotes by DNA polymerase beta. We have just seen what is DNA polymerase beta. It's a eukaryotic enzyme. So these are the normal initial steps. Now we have to study how those pieces of our DNA will be added or joined. So those Okazaki fragments that have been created here have to be joined. So the DNA ligase is the enzyme which will add these pieces together, or it will be called as stitching kind of a thing. That is, all these pieces will be stitched together, and therefore it will form a long strand, or just like this. That is after the application or the action of ligase, not before that. Before ligase takes its action, this will be just like this pieces, and this strand will be continuous, and that will be called leading strand. So since this DNA replication occurs at a very fast pace, it is chance that 5 prime or at the 3 prime end, new strands that are being added, that will have a mismatch. So any such mismatch is corrected with the help of correctional nucleases. So these are the normal correctional enzymes, that is the many mismatching. If adenine and thymine have to be matched, and if adenine comes opposite to a guanine, then either guanine has to be replaced by the thymine, or if adenine has come in front of guanine, then adenine will have to be replaced by cytosine. So such corrections are caused by these, and normally DNA polymerases are a very accurate enzymes. but 1 out of 10,000, just 1 out of 10,000 bases are mismatched. And this process of correcting and reading the DNA strand and correcting the mistake is called DNA proof reading, and that occurs with the help of these enzymes. So this was our DNA replication. After this we will start DNA transcription.